Hey everybody. It's actually been so long since I've done this that it actually feels slightly awkward. Uh, that's really strange. So I'm doing this as a response to Length You Narther, although it's more of a general, I guess, retrospective on things. I figured I would offer my insight, especially since I haven't done a video in forever, and I stumbled upon this because Aaron0883, who also does videos, um, linked me to it, and it's basically just this video about how there used to be all these anarcho-capitalists on YouTube. It used to be like a big thing, and then it kind of faded away. I think there's a lot of explanations. I think there's a lot of truth in the reasons you gave. Um, I think for me personally, I can say that at the time that I started doing YouTube videos, I think I was in a much more alienated place in my life. And now that I feel more in tune with what I want to get out of the world and in tune with my social life, um, a lot of the benefits of doing YouTube videos kind of went away on their own. In fact, one of the last YouTube videos I did that was actually about like thoughts and thinking and stuff like that. I really don't like. It was an Abercrombie and Fitch, a video about something that was going on with Abercrombie and Fitch. And I remember I didn't like that video. And I remember the reason is it felt like I just didn't have anything else to say. It felt like I was trying to come up with a reason to talk on YouTube. And that wasn't how I felt when I first started doing videos. And I think the reason isn't that I ran out of interesting things to say. On the contrary, I've continued to increase my knowledge of things. I've delved into other areas of both philosophy and knowledge in general. I could do fucking YouTube videos about all kinds of stuff, um, but I'm just not feeling it. And I think the reason is that the, the what I got out of it, I don't need to get out of it anymore. I don't need that in my life anymore. I think another part of it too, and this is almost like a microcosm. I'm going to get broad here. This is like a microcosm of what I think has kind of happened to the internet in general. And I'm going to sound like a huge hipster, but I think that the internet started as this place where like people like me, kind of introverted, unusual, intuitive types, um, who don't really have good social skills or a good social life could connect with others that were similar. Um, Basically, it was a way for us to find other people and interact with them in a way that we found comfortable. It also allowed us to find people more like us when we weren't encountering that much in the world around us. And I think both the internet in general and YouTube in particular have shifted their focus as their popularity has increased. I think as the internet has become more ubiquitous and more commonplace, it's been influenced by other personality types, more extroverted types, more more people focused types, and the result has been. I mean, when you look at like the show Silicon Valley, when you look at Hooli and they have all these companies that are like Facebook and Tumblr and all this stuff like it reeks of like this sort of shallow marketing that somebody with my personality type would be kind of disgusted by because it kind of represents like everything that not everything that I'm against like morally, but like everything that like I don't like that was the world around me, and the internet was a place I could go to not be around that. And it's kind of become transformed into that. And it feels more like I have to escape to tiny subsections of the internet just to get that. Realistically, I just have surrounded myself with people that I can more openly talk to in real life, which is probably healthier to be perfectly honest. But there's this feeling of like that the internet has become absorbed into like this mass of the broader culture instead of being like its own unique subculture. And I think YouTube has undergone a similar transformation. It feels like YouTube is it's gotten so much bigger, and it feels like anything I would have to say on YouTube would just be a tiny drop in the bucket. It felt like back then when I did videos, like that I had some kind of presence, that there was some kind of like it meant something. People knew who I was. not to say like that I was famous. Nobody down on the street would have any idea who I was. I couldn't monetize it in any meaningful way, but among the little niche community we had, I was known, and people would interact with me, and it was fun. And I feel like now YouTube has just become like it's become McDonald's. Like you go into YouTube and oh, there's a funny cat video, and oh, here's one of 8,000 fucking YouTube shows that are basically TV shows that couldn't make it on the TV, and they're trying to be, um, you know, I don't even know how to describe it. It's just different. It's completely different. It's more polished, um, less raw, more like I said, marketed, and that's like the vibe I now pull from YouTube, and it makes me uninterested. I think another factor is I kind of started losing interest, and then when I would start to kind of check in to see like, oh, maybe YouTube is interesting again, I would find, and I would look at like anarcho-capitalist videos, and it felt like for a while that every day some person I used to and engage in on a regular basis has somehow went to the far right on the political spectrum, like this whole national anarchist thing and stuff like that. It felt like that's what took over in a weird way, and that made me feel kind of alienated and disinterested in wanting to engage. I mean, it's kind of interesting because normally my impulse would have been like, well, I'm going to be the voice that says the opposite of that. But the problem is I'm equally disgusted at this point with the people on the far left. When I say far right and far left, I'm actually discussing it within an anarchist, and possibly even an ANCAP context. So maybe far isn't the word I should use here, but I'm as disgusted by social justice as I am by let's form intentional communities to keep out black people. Like they're both retarded. Um, so that's a part of it. On the topic of anarcho-capitalism, I just don't feel like I have anything else to offer. Like, what could I say that like Rothbard and Friedman and Hayek and Mises haven't already said, or Rand, or even Molyneux? Um, I've said what I need to say on that. Like, it seems like it wouldn't make sense for me to do videos repeating what I've already said. I have toyed with the idea of doing videos again because I've become much more interested in a sort of existentialist and arguably nihilistic perspective. Partly out of a morbid curiosity for how some of my old subscribers would react to me declaring that there is no such thing as objective morality. Um, but more because it's the first time in a long time that I've felt like I've had possibly something interesting to say that I don't know that a lot of people are saying. I think that's part of it for me. I think part of it is I need to feel like I am offering something that other people don't offer. And at the time, I did feel like that was the thing I was doing. And now, if I started talking about anarcho-capitalism, I wouldn't feel like that. There's a million people talking about it at this point. Um, there's nothing interesting there for me. Um, I mean, in terms of my personal life, it's kind of interesting the direction that it went. And I'm basically going over this for those few of you that are still curious but don't somehow know me well enough to already know this. A few years ago, I quit my job, which was at Dish Network at the time. I basically had what I now know is called a quarter-life crisis. I didn't know that there was a name for this at the time or that it was even a phenomenon. It was just what I was going through. Um, I realized I was not happy with my life, but I didn't quite know why. I started talking to Aaron 0883 and his now wife, but at the time girlfriend, Rose, online a lot. I started getting into like psychology because of them. Started reading a lot about that. And I just up and quit my job, moved to California. I lived with them in a room in their house, actually, for, I don't know, a year. And I worked for Aaron's pest control company for 2.5 years, I think. And after that, I got a job working for a web hosting company, which I will not name for the sake of protecting my employment in case they, for some reason, have some distaste with the type of content I put up. But that's what I've been doing for like the last 2 years. For the first year of that, I mean, I moved to LA for that job. I actually, for about a year, I dated another YouTuber, not an ANCAP YouTuber, but she had a show called The Dens. I dated her. Her name's Lindsay, and that didn't work out, which most relationships don't. So whatever. Uh, but that's she actually knew who I was because she saw my YouTube channel. Like that's part of a general theme that I've noticed, which is that regardless of how much video output I put out now, um, I'm not a very nostalgic person, so I don't spend a lot of time thinking about the past. So I think I'm glad I stumbled upon your video because I think this is useful for me because I don't often reflect on this. But YouTube, and at least my life on YouTube, I mean, it changed my life in a lot of ways. Like I wouldn't have been in contact with any of these people um, were it not for YouTube. The entire direction of my life is different. My entire worldview has been shaped by it. It would be difficult to underestimate how much it's affected me, and it's a very important part of my life uh, that I had. But yeah, I mean, I think what I'm really getting at is it was a necessary part of my own personal growth to do those videos, and it put me in situations that led me to become a more complete person, a more adult person. Uh, but at the end of the day, excuse me, at the end of the day, when you get what you need out of something, once you have it, you've gotten what you need out of it. Um, I mean, if people express that they would be interested in videos on like existentialism or nihilism, I would probably do some videos on that. It's actually not that far of a stretch from what I've already thought. If you can imagine what I used to think and then mix that in there, it's pretty much my values haven't changed much. Um, I don't think of morality as objective, but I still have my views on what I personally tend to admire in people and what I am disgusted by. That hasn't changed much. My general approach to life hasn't really changed that much, apart from possibly being slightly more risk taking, but even then, not by any great degree. Um, yeah, but I mean, just to finish this up so I don't ramble on forever, I liked your video. I'm glad I stumbled across it. It was a good nostalgia trip for me, for someone who doesn't spend a lot of time dwelling on that sort of thing. Um, Actually, one last thing, just to kind of go over some of the things I've gotten interested in, because you mentioned in the video that people just they become interested in other things, and that is true. I mean, existentialist philosophy became very interesting for me in the last 6 months or so, but even before that, um, I got very interested in like weightlifting and nutrition, uh, stuff like that. I grew a beard. That's not really an interest. It's just a thing that happened. Um, I developed an interest as a result of my new job in Linux. So I went from knowing almost nothing about Linux to knowing quite a lot about Linux. Um, so I know have a lot of information there I didn't have before. That doesn't really make for good YouTube videos, but that's a thing. Lately, I've been obsessed with like the Myers-Briggs personality indicator, um, or temperament indicator rather, and learning about that, like deeply learning about that. Like I've been like practicing trying to like identify people based on like their facial expressions and things like that. Um, for those of you that are curious, my type is INTJ, which for anyone familiar with that system is probably not at all shocked. But I find it really interesting, especially getting into like the nuts and bolts of like the different functions and stuff like that. And maybe it would be worth doing videos on that, although I feel like other people already do that better than I would. But yeah, anyway, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this video up. Thanks for the video. I enjoyed it. Hopefully you enjoy my response.